I'm not going to give you any easy answers. No, that's not what I'm doing. Except I just want to give you a sort of historical, just draw your attention to a sort of historical way of looking at these methods. Now you must understand that, well, at one time, I'm responding specifically to Prasanna's thing, we made a transition from day before yesterday to yesterday. Now I want you to understand that please don't look at that transition in terms of a value judgment. Yes. Just because PAR, the implementer and the researcher are one, somehow it is better than where they are in the same circle and even better than where they are out. Please don't see this as a dichotomous sort of one versus the other. I think it is important for us, if you even look at the so-called holy sort of thing of the randomized double-blind controlled trial, which is sometimes even become a bad word now in HPSR. RCT kar raha hai. Literally, sometimes, at least among the qualitative researchers, RCT kar raha hai, But the RCT itself, if you look at what is happening in the thinking of the randomized control trials, people doing that, there is a lot of reflection and reflexivity in response to the movement in the qualitative researchers, the participatory action researchers, even the RCTs, the so-called hard-nosed epidemiologists are also responding. So today, if you were to go and talk with an RCT person doing an RCT, you will say, we accept that these are the limitations, and that's why we've come up with the cluster randomized trials. So in fact, if you look at Ekjut, for example, what are they doing? They are doing it's a participatory learning appraisal PLA learning cycle that they do with women's group. But what is their research methodology? It's an RCT. So Ekjut, the Jharkhand trial, has shown a decrease in neonatal mortality using a cluster RCT, cluster randomized trial. So it is just to bring that into things. So please don't see these methods as one versus the other. Because even the RCT has now become the pragmatic RCT, the pragmatic trial, that Rajni was talking about. You now have something called the consort guidelines, where people are now talking. Listen, why are you worried about these very strict RCTs which don't mean anything for us? But what can we do RCTs in practical situations, pragmatic situations, in daily life? Okay, today, I know for a fact that ICMR, for example, their National Institute of Research on Tuberculosis, last year in the Scientific Advisory Committee actually said, let us stop, keeping all our mind only on RCTs. Let's move towards pragmatic trials and do things So what I'm trying to say is there is a movement among all research methods to engage with the complexity, with the complex reality. Now some research methods, like for example participatory action research, emerged as a reaction to the early very straight-jacketed approaches of the positivist researchers. So that came out, a group sort of said, listen, we don't want to do what you're doing, and we have come out and we are trying to evolve something new. But that doesn't mean that the group that continued to do the quantitative in some way just remained there in stone. They have also evolved. Okay, so what I'm trying to get back is, please don't first of all see these as in any way a hierarchy. This is not one research is better than the other research. Please, and that is the, I think, real importance of this whole question of start from your question. And that should be your, really that should be the starting point. And some questions do require a RCT. Till today, I don't think we have better methods to answer the question, is this treatment better than that treatment in a given disease? Okay, you can argue that you need a pragmatic trial or a RCT, that's fine, fair enough. And there are some methods that you cannot answer with an RCT, which is the question of why this is working here and not there. So please just start with that, and so that was the first point I wanted to make. Please look at it historically. And it will be very interesting for you to just, those of you who are interested in a particular method, take some time and read about the history of that method. If you read about ethnography, you will find that ethnography was a completely, racist method at one point. That looked at the colonial subject as, something, that, you had to understand, and, this strange people whom we had to make sense of, extremely racist at, one point of time. Today, ethnography is destabilizing, realities and, going the subaltern view and this and that. So please look at the development of these methods as and when you choose one or the other or interested, to get a sense of the way in which practitioners have been struggling to make better sense of the world that they are seeing. And I think that is a very critical and crucial aspect when we get into research, is that at some point, at least to me, what is most important is the reflexivity. We constantly ask ourselves, how can we do better? So it's not that now we have reached PAR and that is the last lens, as it were. So that is the peak. Now we can rest. हम आराम कर सकते हैं अभी. Nirvana मिल गया. No, it's definitely not. Okay. So the point is this reflexivity, and to constantly, every method is responding and every method is interacting. So as a participating researcher, I am constantly interacting with the realist. I am constantly interacting with an ethnographer, constantly interacting with an RCT, a person doing an RCT, and obviously there are concerns. There are some weaknesses of this method, some strengths of that method. So please look at it as the beauty, I think, of HPSR is that we have the freedom to draw on so many without really being, intimidated by the other method. But if you start by saying that I believe in multiple epistemologies, then how do we triangulate? So that's, I think that is a sort of fundamental question that we struggle with. If we say that my feeling is important, my, the way I express is important, and the scientific sort of data collection I do is also important. So I think that's where at least in many of these, not necessarily only in PAR, but also in participatory approaches, you then start treating or at least acknowledging and putting all of these different things on the table equally. So let us give a very simple example. We asked a question to in a community monitoring and planning situation. We asked a question to the community. So do you know about the different types of immunization that is being done? So they said no. Then the VHN, the ANM was also there, but she stood up and said, but I took a class for you. So you were sitting there. So then that lady said, yes. No, he asked me, do I know? So I don't know. Yes, I sat in the class, but I don't know. Do you understand? Now, this is not strict triangulation of her data, but the point is that there are two. She sat. VHN took a class, but the person didn't understand. So for the outcome is that essentially that knowledge transfer didn't take place. Do you understand? I'll take it to the next level. The community was asked, the Dalit community was asked, does the VHN come to your community to give the antenatal and immunization services? Yes, the Dalit community said no. The VHN was in the room and she said, but of course I come. Every week I come to the village. So the Dalit community said, you come to the village. You don't come to the Dalit hamlet. The VHN is saying, कि यार देखो, this is the last village I have in one village in the morning, second village, I am desperate to go home. Last bus hai yaar, and Dalit Hamlet utna dur hai, or I come for such a long distance, so I just come and sit down in the village. So for her there is nothing, I mean it's a very practical issue, but for the Dalit community it was a rejection. She's sitting in the house of the upper caste, she's not coming to our basti. So now both sides have a very valid sort of understanding, and you can't say कि ये understanding गलत है, ये understanding गलत है. So at some point what we do is, whenever we come across these different interpretations, these different sort of, we then sit down and get the two to talk and say, listen, this is what they think about you and this is what she is explaining to you. So can you then work out some sort of practical understanding? And in PIR it is easy because you don't necessarily need to come out with some conceptual level triangulation of the data. It's a question of very practical. So what do you mean? What do both of you mean by it, and what are the steps you're going to take forward? So I mean, I think there is an importance. I mean, again, triangulation, maybe good word, bad word, I don't know, but I would still think that it is important for us to look at multiple perspectives of the same situation that you can get in a participatory thing, and it is important for you to engage with each one of those. Even if it is the more powerful person who says a certain thing, I think it's important to engage with it. Why that person is saying it, under what circumstances, and why is that different from the Dalit, the woman, the whatever, who are saying, giving a complete, So I think it's an important point that multiple interpretations of the truth do emerge. In participatory, it is not that we try to see and match the difference in triangulation. What we do is we try and engage with those, and from that try and come up with something that is practically workable. I think many a time, for example, I mean, most recently, just 2-3 weeks ago, we were discussing how to do a study on the effects of mining, coal mining, for example, in Jharkhand and in Chhattisgarh. Now, do you need to do now this is from the Andolan, from the mining union, who have come and said we want to do a study. So obviously they have a certain standing within that community. They are representatives of that community, and they are fairly well established representatives of that community. If you go to that community and ask them ki, we have come through Jamaica, for example, ठीक है, you are accepted immediately, ज़्यादा नहीं चाहिए. Now ऐसे परिस्थितियों में, in those situations where it is the community representative who have invited you in and said, listen, come and do the study. Okay. Now at that point, the argument, when I said, should we have consent? But no, I mean, the community has invited us. So, no, but I am not comfortable with it. I agree. I mean, I think at some point of time, even there may be women, children, men who don't want to opt, I mean, who for very genuine reasons. Now, how do we balance that peer pressure? Ki, हमें संगठन ने कहा कि take part. No, I don't want to take part now. How do I express myself without being excommunicated in a way, literally? So I don't know. I don't have such answers. But I think there is a need to explore the individual within that community. And I think one of the issues that we raised in the ethical issue slide was that there is a tendency, a romantic tendency to think that a community means there's one homogeneous community, but there isn't. There are, I think, multiple fractures within that community, over caste, class, gender, the disabled people with mental health issues, with special challenges. So I mean, and each of these groups, whether one person can represent or one group can represent all of their interests, these are questions that we are struggling with. But I think that it's just that at some point there has to be a commitment that we are open to the fact that some people may not want to take part, and then they should have the option of opting out. Okay, thank you very much.